Much. Law and Licensing
you.
Board Member Lear. Do you have two today?
I do believe, yes. So item 3.3, there was no motion for the board. Item 3.4, the committee moves that the board approve R277-925, Effective Teachers in High Poverty Schools Incentive Program, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
So the motion from the committee is that the board approves R277-925, Effective Teachers in High Poverty Schools Incentive Program, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, that passes unanimously.
Item 13.5, the committee moves that the board approve R277-911, Secondary Career and Technical Education Draft 3 on second and final reading.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approves R277-911, Secondary Career and Technical Education Draft 3 on second and final reading. Board Member Norton?
Yes, I
sorry,
have an
Jenny.
amendment for this. If Jeff might be here to pull up
Jeff.
that amendment.
Yes, the amendments on 911.
Okay. It's a substitute motion to pass draft 4.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
With these changes?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The changes are, oops, I forgot, it's way down here.
And the
Sorry.
lines are not,
592 or something like that, page 20. I'm almost there. Okay. To insert, if an, on line 580, if an LEA accepts federal Carl Perkins fund, that first the set aside would be used. The next part of that would be down on line 587, an LEA shall set aside the amount required. On line 591, again, that add-on funds would be used for the CTE. Again, CTE add-on funds. And then at the very end on 599, unrestricted. A lot of these are clarifying, for instance.
Wait just a minute,
Yes.
let's get a second.
Yes.
Do I have a second to this amendment? Or the motion? Second and second, okay. Okay, would you like to speak to your motion now? Sorry.
I would.
Listen.
Some of this is clarifying information. For instance, when this was brought to members of staff about the CTE funds, that it would be the add-on funds, those in finance felt like that was what it was supposed to be. It just didn't state that. So that was added in. There is some, can I just read some information?
Yes.
State Code 53F-2-311 makes no mention of maintenance of effort to recent CTA add-on funds. Maintenance of effort has been required to receive federal Carl Perkins funds. This particular rule would require that districts comply with federal maintenance of effort requirements to receive these state add-on funds. MOE funds are general district WPU funds, which the state legislature and state board have always left up to the LEA's discretion. That was dealing with the MOE portion. The changes to 911 that require an LEA to spend their maintenance of effort funds before being awarded CTE add-on funds makes all program carry-on add-on funds. It then caps the add-on carryover to 30%. And finally, the CTE add-on funds are made to cover the increased cost of CTE classes. The additional costs of a CTE class include heating and cooling of the much larger CTE spaces. These classes place a larger demand on maintenance, custodial, and technology. The unrestricted indirect cost rate allows the district to pay for these.
Jenny? I mean, Board Member Earl? Oh, wait, Board Member
this
Lear
is-
was first. I'm
And this is
sorry.
on something else, so.
I just have my light on because I've been.
Oh, okay, thank you. Board Member Earl. I apologize.
I'm not speaking to this.
Okay.
But I do have so there are no more questions?
Does anyone have any questions to this? Go
But I do.
ahead, Board Member
I
Lear.
do. I just wanted to clarify with Talia and/or the finance people, if these are workable amendments.
Deborah, do you want to come up and do the financial part of that?
I apologize, I haven't seen these ones.
Talia, do you want to respond? If Deborah doesn't have that?
I have it, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so one concern that you might have is the expend and set aside verbiage. Set aside means that they just have to set aside the money, and not requiring them to actually spend and match the funds that they're receiving. So that would be a concern on the finances side, if that's helpful.
Can I follow up?
Is it on the same question? Okay, because
I'm
I have one too.
just trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's a policy decision of whether we want to allow that, or it's not allowable, or it's in violation of something, or which of the above?
By setting aside the funds, it's not really MOE. It's not
Right.
really a match. You're just setting aside the funds, saying, we will spend this amount of money, but you haven't actually expended it in order to match what you're required to match.
And so when
Does
you
that-
say required, I'm sorry, I'm just wanting to make sure.
Yeah, because I'm not getting it yet either, Carol.
Okay, when you say required to match, and there was an explanation that said that's required with federal funds, but not with state funds, but this requirement is, but now this is imposing that if it says expend. Is that what you're saying? Or you're saying something else?
This is, Talia, do you want to answer this one?
So it's all, I
Introduce
apologize,
yourself.
Talia Longhurst, State CT Director. It has always been implied to be expend. It was never implied to be set aside. What we look for when we monitor is that they have expended the funds in order to meet their maintenance of effort requirement.
And Carol, sorry, can I be clear? You're talking about their add-on money that they've spent, their add-on money. What?
That they've spent maintenance of effort and then add-on money.
And I don't really understand why you would do that in reverse when their add-on money it's only set for CTE, but their maintenance money or their WPU money could go anywhere.
So and tell me if I say this wrong, either one of you, is that the requirement is that maintenance of effort, regular WPU dollars are spent first, add-on is spent second.
Why?
Because add-on is additional costs of the program. So all LEAs earn regular WPU for students in CTE classes. They have a requirement to spend that money on CTE programs, and then they can spend their add-on dollars. Any carry forward should only be add-on dollars.
May I ask another clarifying, because WPU is for every student, whether they're CTE or not. All those kids are getting that money. And the reason they're getting add-on is because they're taking CTE courses. And so I still don't understand why the WPU has to be spent first and why we're telling him what has to be spent first.
It's just a percentage of regular WPU. It's not the entire WPU pot of money. I don't know, Wendy, if you have any clarification. Have I said that clearly enough?
Yeah.
I think the issue carry forward.
Are we talking about, because, yeah, it is. Mark just sent me, it's the carry forward. And I think the whole 30% and all of this discussion is about the carry forward. So what you're saying is if they spend all of this and you can, and then they have this add-on, but you can't carry forward 30%, but I now have to buy a new brake lathe next year that broke. I don't have any carry forward to do that. I'm gonna have to take my own WPU money.
So they can carry forward above and beyond 30% as long as they have a spend plan. As long as what they're saving it for, repair costs, a new school opening, as long as those things make sense, but the carry forward should only be add-on funds. That's all we look at when we look at carry forward funds.
Okay. I'm just gonna just jump, Chair Huntsman?
So really, and it hasn't been clearly stated in here or very well for my brain that's used to a lot of years in finance, but I have to separate it by the color of money. You guys have heard me say this. You got WPU money that's unrestricted. That means I don't have any restrictions on it. Then you have your CTE that has restrictions on it and has to stay in this bucket. And then you have your add-on also that has a story behind it, and I view that as like a restricted fund. In order to have CTE in a LEA, there's also a contribution of WPU, which is unrestricted, so it ends up in this big pot. And what they're basically saying is, I want to take on my carry forward, I want to take my WPU money, have it over here, and I'll just carry forward this greater amount, I don't know if it's 30% or whatever it is, and still carry forward my WPU money too, so I have more operating money to run my CTE programs. The way that it's stated now is I can't do that. And so I'm actually in penalty, or I've got a problem with future funds because I took my WPU money that's unrestricted and now I put it in this bucket. Now it's restricted. Am I telling the story right? So now I want to unrestrict it by doing this. And the question is, does it violate? I think that was one of the questions
That's,
here.
that's what.
Yeah, you asked the question, does that meet our accounting standards, is that a violation of something? The intent is not to abuse the system, but especially some of the smaller LEAs and some of them that have aggressive CTE program, it helps them with their carry forward and it helps them with the unforeseen big hits in their operation. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but that's really what's happening here, I believe. Maybe.
But
If somebody will tell me I'm wrong.
Can I go back to my original, I'm still not clear if it's just a policy decision that this board would make, or if it's something required by, because under special ed, I mean, I know enough to know that MOE is required by the federal regulations. But is this different, the same?
Wendy Morton, I'm a CTE coordinator, and I work with our federal program and our state calculations. So we do have a federal requirement for CTE programs for maintenance of effort as a state. The calculation for that is fairly involved. We use some effort, if you will, from post-secondary as well as secondary, which includes LEAs who are receiving Perkins dollars. So we report that as part of our federal maintenance of effort, but there's nothing in our federal language or in our state statute that says this is how you have to determine the maintenance of effort. And this is how it has to be tied. And so I would say our predecessors, Talia and myself, would have said that it's required because of our federal program. But when you look at how it's calculated, it is tied to that federal reporting, but the federal guidance does not require us to do it this way. I don't know
So
if that
there-
clears things
There's not a
up.
federal requirement to do what we're asking in this room.
With state funds.
With
We
state
have to
fun-
do something, but we don't have, it doesn't tell us how we have to
But
do
with
it.
state funds?
Yes, because it's a supplement, not supplant federal grant. Yes. So it doesn't tell us how.
But you're talking about two different pots of, actually three. You have Perkins, you have add-on, and you have the district's WPU, and they're three different pots of money.
They are.
So, anyway, I'm gonna go. Jenny, you're on something there. Board Member Norton.
No, thank you, and I think the concern here is, we don't know what next year's problems are going to be. So when we have got, when we've just spent all of our unrestricted money, and now we've got this little bit of restricted money left, we can't use it next year, unless it happens to fall into the same pot.
Or the spend
Whereas
plan.
had we been able to spend our restricted things on restricted expenses and be saving our unrestricted money, then, I mean, it's just seems to be, good fiscal responsibility.
Board Member Earl.
And I think in some areas where you have either smaller district or a smaller program, sometimes it takes longer to put up reserves for something to make improvements upon, like if it were welding or something, you know what I mean?
Or
You're-
you don't know.
Yeah, or you don't know, but that's the feedback I got from some of my constituents, was that very feedback, so.
Can I ask one final question?
Go ahead, Carol.
So is this something you support, or you feel like it's just up to the board, or you have reservations?
So as I listened to you all, and I apologize, I missed the very beginning of your discussion on this. My YouTube stream was delayed upstairs. If the concern is about the carry forward amount, then let's delete those lines. Let's take the carry forward spend plans out. Let's remove that. That was new in this revision. The maintenance of effort language has not changed from the way it has been for many, many years. That language has stayed the same. There is absolutely no change. If the concern is about carrying money forward, then let's remove those lines. That would be my advice to you, but whatever you do is what we will do. Whatever you say is what we will do.
Yeah, but I don't want to, I don't want this to cause a series of other problems or inconsistencies or whatever.
We haven't had the carry forward spend plans and the restriction on carry forward in the current version of the rule. I don't foresee unintended
Oh,
consequences
okay.
by removing it.
I see, but
If that's what the concern is, then I would suggest you remove it.
that's easy, but we've still got the problem with the other one. Not the carry forward, or set aside the amount required to remain eligible for funding disbursement. It seems to me there's two kinds of funds, and he wants to do the same thing with both of them. Am I misreading that?
I have a couple of thoughts here. The carry forward, if you take the 30%, but it's still, I think we need to delineate whether we're talking about Perkins money. What if they don't take Carl Perkins money? Then what does that mean for a district who doesn't take it?
Okay, Wendy Morton, CT coordinator. I'm trying to make sure I understand the question.
I'll ask it again.
Okay.
The federal mandates only belong to the districts who take Carl Perkins. They don't belong to everybody. If they don't take Carl Perkins, the federal mandate doesn't apply to them
Sure.
with
So.
their MOE.
Correct, yes. So we would, in our calculation for federal maintenance of effort right now, if a LEA does not receive Carl Perkins funds, we do not include this expense in our reporting currently. And so it's not part of that number that's reported for our state maintenance of effort. We exclude them from the
So
calculation.
I guess I'm asking, I'm just being clear, is that clear here so that districts aren't it's not being convoluted by somebody maybe who's new to a district or is this. for this.
So adding the statement that you have in there, except if an LEA accepts federal Carl Perkins funds, under our current plan and the way that LEAs have rolled out Carl Perkins, I believe that could cause a little confusion about who has the maintenance of effort requirement or what we count, because most of our state has formed consortia. And so multiple states are receiving the benefit of Perkins, but are not dollar for dollar actually receiving it in their LEA through their financial system. So I think that could complicate things for them by adding that statement. For me, it's a calculation. I can exclude who receives the benefit or does not.
So how do we do that so that those who don't take Carl Perkins aren't having, they're not calculated, or in our rule, it's saying, yeah, this is going to happen to you, but we know upstairs, but we know because Wendy knows, but maybe who
Sure.
take places Wendy doesn't know. What, do you have verbiage that would work there? Yeah.
So the best way to do it would just be to indicate when, we publish our financial reports. I guess the only other way to do it would be to indicate it on our maintenance of effort report.
But we've got to do something in rule. I think that we've had people come to us and say, we need clarity. Chair Huntsman?
Yeah, I think, without objection, I think, I haven't found, I found this to be a good betterment to the rule. And if it passes before the board, then of course, we've got a little bit of time if there is a snag or a problem on it, but I don't know what else to do, because we're not going to resolve some of these questions on their side, but it seems like, for me, everything's in order. I support this amendment, because I can't find anything that says, I don't see anything, and if our financial people don't have anything today that says otherwise, I see it as a betterment, and it creates a better environment for our LEAs with their MOE, WPU. I see that as a good win, but, I mean, that's where I'm at. But there's still, if there's a snag, then we can still come back and fix it.
Vice Chair Davis?
Is that summary that Chair Huntsman made, is that accurate? Is there anything about this amendment that would get us in trouble legally? And if so, or with MOE or whatever, could you just let us know, or are we okay to move forward here? I mean, what are the domino effects of that?
Deborah, would you say one of the dominoes would be expand versus set aside? That, and Deputy Superintendent Jones felt the same way on that word.
I don't understand what they think it should say spend instead of set aside?
Expand.
Expend instead of set aside?
If we're not doing the 30%, I don't think it matters.
That's what I thought.
It won't matter if we're not doing the maintenance effort 30% hold.
And then my follow-up question would be, if we're not doing the 30% maintenance of effort, but we're required to do an MOE, what are we going to do for MOE?
Talia?
If I could just maybe mention an unintended consequence that I worry about. And really, this is going to affect, this change as proposed would truly affect the small LEAs more than anyone else. CT add-on funding was never intended to fully fund CT programs. The idea always is that it is additional funds on top of regular WPU because of the high cost of running CTE programs. It was never intended to fully fund programs. If you take away the requirement to expend maintenance of effort first, a match from regular WPU first, small LEAs who maybe have a district where they say, we're not going to give you any match, we're not going to give you any other funds, fund yourself out of add-on, they will be hurt by not having enough money to run their programs. And that could happen
Why would that
with the change, because they're no longer required to have a maintenance of effort match.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
So you're saying programs would be diminished, but,
Yes.
but why is maintenance of effort required in federal law if they take Perkins money? And if so, if we don't do the 30%, what are we doing for MOE to meet the legal requirement? Do we need some kind of substitution here?
So maintenance of effort in federal law, as Wendy explained, is a requirement for the state. How we calculate, how we pool state dollars to meet that maintenance of effort requirement is up to you all and to the Board of Higher Education. That is up to you. Without having this maintenance of effort match, if you will, then we have to find a different way to calculate it. But the federal law does not specifically say you must do it this way.
I understand all that. I'm asking if we don't do this, what are we going to do? And when
That's a
do we
great
have to
question.
decide that? And are we time bound?
Yeah.
So Wendy Morton, we have a report that's due each January where we report what our federal maintenance of effort is for the prior fiscal year. So we would have, what LEAs are expending for the current year would be part of our federal report in FY '24, in January of 2024. Fiscal year '24.
That's the next time we report?
No, we report this year, but it's based off of what they've already spent. And just to be clear, the 30% carry forward amount isn't what the maintenance of effort is calculated off of. That spend plan is not tied to how we currently calculate their maintenance of effort.
Yes.
So what is?
It's based off of students taking courses. So the same way that add-on is generated. So maintenance of effort is generated based off students choosing to take CTE courses. And then the maintenance of effort is also tied to that same number. So essentially, if a student chooses to take a CTE course, and then a LEA is generating the general WPU, they're also then generating the add-on WPU. And if a student doesn't, then the LEA does not generate those dollars for that course.
So can I follow up? You're
Yes, go ahead.
currently figuring out WPU based on how much money the student is generating and not on how much money the LEA is spending and which pot they're spending out of first.
So how we determine how much an LEA would meet in maintenance of effort is based off of how students are taking courses. We determine whether they met maintenance of effort based off how they spent the funds.
And are there requirements to spend the WPU before the add-on currently?
Yes, in our current board rule. But
But there's no 30%.
there is no 30% in our current board rule. There's no spend plan in our current board rule.
So if we got rid of the 30%, it eliminates a lot of this discussion.
Yes.
So could we just, if we just deleted lines 589 and 590, that would, or would it be the next two lines?
594. Nope, even farther. 589 to 598, you would delete.
Ah. And except for what you explained as a possible detriment for small districts, there's nothing else that would prohibit this taking place this way.
To remove those lines? No.
So Board Member Norton, this is your motion. I think that that might
I think we
work,
want to do that, yes. We want to delete.
those
five-
lines.
Lines
So are you
five-
amending the motion then?
Amend the motion.
Okay,
In the motion it had that we had that, so
oh, so you're,
it's like
it's in there somewhere?
paren 3.
You take
We
out
can
starting at
delete-
589? I thought it was 590.
590, 589. Maybe
Through
we just-
598.
Or maybe we just,
And then, I'm wondering if that cleans up the orange pieces, if we still need those. Because I think where Wendy had talked about, if an LEA accepts Carl Perkins, they're already doing that in their calculations.
my only
And-
concern with that is we're basically requiring LEAs to accept federal funds.
No, I think they still don't have to accept it.
Well, they don't have to, but if they, I mean, they're just, now they're, I mean, because if they were maybe not going to accept them because they didn't want to have to deal with the MOE, but now they're gonna have to do it either way. So whether they do take the federal funds or not, they're still gonna have to do that MOE and expend, again, we're back into, and that means you're gonna expend your WPU first.
Talia, did you have a comment on that?
I would say that's not the case. We have some LEAs now who choose not to accept Carl Perkins funds. The MOE requirement has always been there on a state level, so that does not change.
So I think,
a federal requirement for state funds.
so I think the concern was lying is that they were taking their MOE, which is their WPU money, putting in here, and now it's been shrunk down, and they could only keep 30% of that, which they had put there. So if we take those others out, I think it's probably a good compromise. But Board Member Norton? Does it just go back to exactly the way the rule was before? So there's no change to the rule?
Well, no, there's other changes. All the lines, there's a few
In
lines
this?
above.
In this section, yes.
Okay. So Board Member Norton, are you okay with that amendment to take out those lines only and not the others? Who seconded that? Chair, are you okay with that? And, okay. Without objection, is everyone okay that we are just getting rid of all the orange and keeping and striking out 589 to 598? Is that right?
And you're
Okay.
you're also deleting the orange on 587?
Yes,
No.
because
Yes.
that was a discussion from the operations side that it needs to be expended, not
Expend
set
and
aside.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so the draft four would be the other changes from law and licensing and to strike lines 589 to 598 from draft four. None of the orange, right.
And, well, you didn't say anything about 587. Pardon?
All the orange is gone,
Okay.
okay? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, are we voting on just this, these amendments, or the whole draft?
No, the draft four.
No.
No amendments, right?
Oh, yeah, it is the amendment first, yes, thank you. Thank you, Board Member Klein, thank you for keeping me in line. Okay, and so now the motion before the board is to accept, no, it is, the motion
an
is
amendment.
for the board to accept draft four.
I have an amendment, or a
Correct,
question. I
Richmond,
have
is that accurate? Draft four now. Okay, Board Member Earl.
Now I'm having to go back and find it real quick. It's line 6, I can't remember now if it's 640 or 604. Give me just a second. I just had a question on the LEAs for the disbursement of 602, sorry. The disbursement of funds, the administrative WPUs, and why did we spell out for school districts and charter schools when it talks about LEAs here? Why do we have to spell that out? Who is that excluding?
No. 602.
602.
Is there a reason it doesn't say
But why does it
LEAs?
say that, though?
It may have just been an oversight.
Well,
where
it's added.
Oh, it's
It's
added?
added language.
Oh, okay. Give us the reason. Oh, because we can't think of it now.
Sorry, Wendy Morton again.
Okay, thank you.
The reason it was added is because if you look further in the lines below, there's different ways that the administrative WPUs are awarded to districts and charter schools. And so it was just recommended that we add that clarification in the title, that it was for both, not that it was to make any additional changes.
Oh, I see. You're just saying this is the section for districts and charter school WPU.
Exactly.
Okay, I was
Exactly.
wondering if it was clarification for some reason, if it was eliminating something like Reese's or,
No,
okay,
no.
okay,
It
Oh,
is,
Miss
it's
Jen,
just
good
to
job.
clarify what's covered in the section.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
One other question, 787, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
787, does, okay. So all right, 778, sorry there. A little switcher. Does an LEA have to, this has to do with nationally and state chartered organizations. Does it have to be a nationally and a state chartered association in order for, so then it says the superintendent on 787, other organizations may be approved by the superintendent that meet the qualifications. I guess I'm just making sure. That wouldn't have to be a nationally, or would it have to be? So it could be some other organization we haven't listed, but it would have to be nationally and state recognized. Okay.
That
all
is
right.
accurate.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, I do have one question about the restricted and unrestricted rate. Why are we listing it as the restricted rate and not the unrestricted rate?
She's staring at me. I assume that means I should speak. So it has not been specified before in the prior versions of this rule. We've had a number of LEAs come to us and say, we don't want to charge indirects on add-on funds, or we do want to charge it, but we want to charge a lesser amount. Indirect costs can take up a large percentage, and by that I mean somewhere between 10 and 19-ish%, depending upon the annual negotiated rate by each and every single LEA. And so by taking some of that money, again, some of the larger LEAs, it's a big pot of money, but they have more money in the relative scheme of things. Again, the smaller LEAs, when they have less add-on funding, are more, they're more at a detriment because they're taking a percentage of their funds, and some have asked us not to have to do that. If you look at and again, correct me if I misspeak, but I believe there are 3 add-on funds allocated by the state legislature. We have special ed, we have at-risk funds, and we have CTE add-on funds. Special ed and at-risk are not allowed to charge any indirect costs to those add-on funds. CTE has always been at the unrestricted rate for add-on funds. So that's a huge pot of money that goes to pay for a lot of different things that none of the other add-on funds have to pay for. So the compromise that we were trying to reach here is to charge the restricted amount, which is a lower amount, if you're going to charge something at all.
I still don't understand the difference in why it wouldn't be unrestricted or just leave it alone.
Well, without having a definition or a specification in the rule, it defaults to unrestricted.
Okay, I like that. actually. Board Member Norton, did you have something to add? I would like to make an amendment that we change restricted to unrestricted. I can't do that, I'm chairing. I can. I can't do that, I'm chairing.
Make that motion
Online,
on line 599 that we change restricted to unrestricted. That was an oversight on my part.
Second, Chair Huntsman? Can we see it up here? I apologize.
That we, do you want me to just make the motion?
No, you did make the motion,
Okay.
it was seconded by Chair Huntsman.
Okay,
And I just,
you need to look
they,
at
they
it.
want to see it in the.
Line
row.
599,
and you want it to be what says in the orange?
yes.
Okay.
And now it should, yeah, it should say unrestricted on 599.
Okay.
That's the orange.
So that's that change and deleting the other lines is what we're left with.
Yes.
Ask it.
What's the difference again in the percentage or the amount?
And to whom?
It's an average of anywhere, I would say, from 10 to maybe 15%. Deborah might have more information.
Can I?
Go ahead,
answer?
Deborah.
So it's the same, so the LEAs have the option of going through negotiations with the federal government, just like we do. And so they're all different. They have huge ranges. Not all LEAs choose to negotiate a rate, so some of them don't have indirect costs. But some, they do, and they range pretty large. They can be anywhere from, like Talia said, they could be anywhere from 5% all the way up to 19-20%.
I think I remember, can I follow up? Yes. From our committee discussion on that. Will you remind us, if they can be anywhere from 5 to 19% and they're negotiating the rate with the federal government, what would us imposing a rate, and I still don't know the difference between restricted and unrestricted rates, but what's the difference and why would we do that? What's the benefit of doing that?
Sure, so can I answer?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay.
Other than the obvious, it would go to hard costs.
Sure. So whenever we go into negotiations with the feds, you end up with a restricted rate and an unrestricted rate. The restricted rate is the only rate that can be utilized towards federal grants, and they tend to be a little bit lower than the unrestricted rate. The unrestricted rate is generally higher, and you can charge that against federal funds that are from another federal agency that you did not negotiate with. So like our CTE funds here, or not CTE, sorry, CMP funds here are unrestricted because they go through the Department of Agriculture instead of the Department of Ed, who we actually negotiate with. And then, of course, any of your other funding, your local funding, your state funds, things like that, they would use their unrestricted rate.
Oh, one more time.
Does that-
Sorry. I just really quickly is, so if the restricted rate is only used for federal grants, are we within the law to go back to an unrestricted rate? Is that fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The real decision there is that the restricted rate can only federal grants, I should say, can be charged the restricted rate. But the restricted rate could also be used for state funds if you, in this case, you have the authority to make that decision.
But they don't want to restrict them.
So you want to leave the
Unrestricted. Yeah.
Because we're talking
Any more
about-
discussion?
Well, I was just going to say, we're talking about big, so those CTE buildings or those CTE rooms are the biggest rooms oftentimes in these schools, and they have higher HVAC rates. and, you know, because they've got sawdust and metal parts and stuff, so, you know, there's a lot going on there that it's a higher expense for the school, and so it should be able, you know, it would be most helpful to be using unrestricted rates.
Thank you. Okay, the motion on the table is that to change restricted to unrestricted rates. Seeing no more lights, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously.
And that completes our report.
Oh, Board Member Lear, thank you so much for your report, and I'm going to pass the helm back over to. Oh, the full motion? Oh, yeah, we
Oh,
do.
I would
I'm not
like-
passing anything yet.
I would
Board
like-
Member Klein.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment. There's actually 3 different places where the term Plan for College and Career Readiness is identified. So lines 457 and 458.
That doesn't complete our report.
Let's see. Get back there. So long.
457.
So I would, on line, 458, I would make a motion to strike out the last half of the sentence after the comma, make the comma period.
Will you state it, what it is?
So it says, the full line is that provide all students with a seamless education system from public education to post-secondary education, and then I would put a period there and strike out driven by a plan for college and career readiness as defined in section R277462. And that part from driven through the rule number would be stricken.
Okay, so the motion to amend would be to take out driven by a plan for college and career readiness as defined in section R277462.
Correct. And then there's a couple more places where
That says the same thing.
basically, it's the same reference to the plan for college and career readiness is found on line 520.
So, Board Member
You could
Klein,
probably do them all at once.
can I go ahead and state that Board Member Klein would like to take out the words, the plan for college and career readiness throughout the document?
Yes, but it's slightly different context, so there's some other verbiage next to each of those where
Okay,
it's
so can we
listed,
go
so-
back to the first one and
Sure.
see if we get a second first?
Sure.
Okay, so the motion is to, now I don't know where I am. To take out driven by plan for college and career readiness as defined in section R277462 on line 458. Do I have a second to that amendment? I don't. Go ahead, Board Member Klein.
Okay. Well, I guess the others it's kind of a moot point then. To go with the others
Board
as
Member
well.
Earl?
I have a question on that. Is that a legal requirement that we have that? I just am wondering if we have that in law, the college. I'm curious. Does anyone know? It seems like that is the wording. Am I right?
The CCR is.
Yeah. Okay.
But is the document, because it's a reference to, so if I can explain, the plan for college and career readiness, it says as defined in section 42, or R277462. If you go to 462, it references you directly for the definition of, for that definition, you have to go from 462 to the document, and it's, let me pull it up here really quick. It's called the College and Career Readiness School Counseling Program Model, and it's over it's 102 pages long, and that is the definition. So this CTE rule refers us, says that the plan for college and career readiness as defined in is referring to this 100-plus page document, and I don't know that very many people have read this 100-plus page document to know what it contains and what we're putting into the CTE rule by accepting that line.
Okay, it's already in another rule, but if I can go to Jeff on this for some policy on that. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so the references to the plan for college and career readiness as defined in the school counseling manual, that is an entire manual that has a whole set of requirements for school counselors, which you as a board approved, I believe, back in 2018. And you incorporated that manual by reference into the rule, so that manual is the law, unless you change the manual itself and that rule. So essentially what's being said here is with CTE, when creating schedules and plans for students and whatnot throughout this rule, it references 462 as essentially saying the counselors who are helping students register for CTE need to be consulting the student's individual plan for college and career readiness that they're required by 462 to have. So you could remove these lines from the rule. However, what you would be removing is the requirement that the CTE program and the counselors utilize the college and career readiness plan of a student to inform CTE registration and whatnot. And then there could be some further questions of whether or not we want to amend 462, which is a separate rule in the manual, but that's a different conversation. But the entire plan and what needs to be in a student's plan is all outlined in 462 through that manual.
So 462 defines college and career readiness by incorporating this whole document. The 100-plus document is the definition. And so by reference to 462 in the CTE rule, we are incorporating this entire 100-plus page document as if we agree with it all. And there is so much in this document that is problematic. I'm happy to read you just a few excerpts from it.
It's okay.
If you would like.
If you don't agree with it, then that's okay.
So
Okay.
I guess my next question would be if we can't get it out of here, and if it's required, I would ask that this document, this college and, what do they call it? College and Career Readiness Plan, counseling manual, come back to our board for review. Because it was made several years ago and a lot has happened since then, and there's a lot of language that is in there that maybe the board at the time didn't realize what they were passing, and I would ask that come back before us for review.
Board Member Klein, we've noted that, and we will
Okay,
put that under for the leadership.
okay, thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you. Okay. So now, the motion is to approve, I can't remember what we're called now. Which rule is this? R 277911, draft 4 on final reading, as amended. Seeing no lights, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? No. One opposition? Board Member Klein?